You cheeky little Silverstone-based team. I can't believe, of all the teams on the grid, to immediately rip someone else's homework. Of course it's Aston Martin. Once again, they've taken inspiration from a top team. Tracing Point meets Green Ball. We saw pictures earlier today. It's already been memed to of course it has. It's hilarious. The team behind the beloved pink Mercedes, the 2020 car that gave Checo his first ever win in Formula 1. Probably the third best car that season, that did end up falling on its arse after the floor changes nerfed the Mercedes and therefore affected them, of course. Now, obviously, they didn't go down the Mercedes route for this year. Don't have to explain why. Although I think it's a bit of a shame they didn't go more Ferrari, because that car is still by far and away the best looking car. Imagine that car in green. Majestic. But instead, my cracks saw the Red Bull, saw Max Verstappen winning every single race that he finishes, and thought, I'll have some of that. Get the tracing paper out, boys and girls. We're copying this one. Not to mention the arrival of ex-Red Bull head of aerodynamics, Dan Fallows, who joined as technical director only last month. Red Bull, I think that man needed a bit more gardening leave. Look, the resemblances in the side pods are clear to see from especially a bang side on profile. It almost looks like a complete carbon fibre copy. But it is also important to remember that with that whole pink Mercedes, a car that literally from all angles looked identical to the Mercedes, they were only caught out on a brake duct. And I've said this before, the actual ruling was, I don't know, it was a bit sus. I don't really think they did anything wrong personally. Or at least not really against the rules, because it was a part that was listed, but then it wasn't listed. It was a bit muggy. But that proved that you could copy a whole car and only get caught out on some poxy aerodynamic brake casing. Because the ruling around that is more that you can't share information. So it's not like Team A can just make all the stuff and give it to Team B and be like, good luck, crack on. Again, that's what the FAF in 2020 proved. There's nothing stopping you looking and using pictures and using your own eyes to take in information and create your own version. Now, the thing is, how long will it have taken to pull this new side pod design together? Because it is drastically different. It's not like an evolution of the old one. It is a complete different direction. And I did say at the start of the season, I thought their side pod design was the least inspiring in terms of intricacies and details. So almost in a way, you got to think like maybe Aston Martin just kept it simple, wait until we see the quickest cars come out and then copy. Look, I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying that wouldn't be a terrible strategy, especially if this ends up being rapid. These things, they take months of planning, but obviously we first saw the cars break cover in late February at the original Barcelona non-televised test. So it wouldn't surprise me that, you see the cars are going quick straight away, and then rubberneck, boom, Adrian Newey masterclass. We were all impressed by the look of that car when we first saw it in Barcelona. Anything new he can do, we can do the same. Also, another theory that I've just plucked out of thin air, maybe this has nothing, but knowing that Dan Fallows was coming in, head of aerodynamics at Red Bull, would it make sense to build your car in a similar vein to the incoming technical director? I'm not suggesting he gave them information before he joined, because that would be very, very suspect. But surely they wouldn't do that, because that would be just so blindingly obvious. But just take what you can from that Red Bull concept, build your Aston Martin 2.0 in the same vein, so he's walking in and has a platform that, broadly speaking, he'd understand more so than if they'd gone down the Ferrari direction. You know what I mean? That makes sense to me, but I also think there's a broader question where, is it in the spirit of the sport? I think that's what's upset a few people seeing this happen again. And, originally when back in 2020, I think that's why a lot of people are upset as well. Look, that's up for debate. Will other teams be annoyed? Maybe. Probably definitely if this ends up being quick. But again, we don't know. Maybe they've seen the Red Bull design and they've completely bottled their adaptation. Although they didn't do that in 2020. That 2020 Racing Point was rapid. So I've got no doubt that they've been able to deliver on this aerodynamic philosophy. But how good will it be? Seb 5 world titles? Lance 1 world title? We laugh, but it's a kind of exciting prospect. Both lads are running this new design as well. It's not like one's running the old spec, one's running the new. So that suggests that they are going full send into it, because, it would have been interesting to see actually one of them run the old spec car and see the relative differences, I guess. But they've made their bed, so they're going to have to lie in it now. That's how I feel about it, but I wanted to get some of your thoughts and your insight on it, so I asked you lot. So I've got some Twitter scum comments, I've got some slightly more sophisticated YouTube viewer comments, as well. So let's start with the tweets. Again, just asking for your opinion on this Aston Martin. How does it make you feel? OM Dalton84 says, I mean, the design was open to be seen by all. If they want to try it out for themselves, by all means. They do say imitation is a form of flattery after all. If it works for them, then that's a good thing. The more teams we have near the front, the better. I agree. I don't want this to be a 2/maybe 3 team championship. Why can't we get to an F1 where there are 5-6 teams fighting for race victories? It's been like that in the past. I know that feels out of the question now, but it really isn't. It really shouldn't be moving forward anyway. Citrus F1 says, let's be honest, it looks sexy. Is it in the moral spirit? Not really. Is it fast? Probably. Is it legal? Definitely. You know what? I really like the look of the. I don't actually think this looks as nice. Just purely aesthetically, not that that matters in any way, shape or form. So I actually think it's less sexy, I'm afraid. Not in the moral spirit. I mean, as well, there's this whole debate, it's top tier sport. Is there room for morality when, everyone's trying to get any gain that they can get within the rules? Probably not. It's probably a bit too idealistic. Formula Dino said it's quite funny, but for real, teams shouldn't be able to succeed by copying like it completely defeats the point, which is, it's a fair point. There is the technological development race. It's like, if that's not going to be a component of F1, we might as well just make it a spec series. But at the same time, there was always going to be eventually this stage where all of the designs start to kind of come together because there is this established best route forward. Aston have been bold throwing their eggs and their resource, which again is limited because of the cost cap this year, into this design. Maybe there's more room for the Ferrari based design to flourish. Maybe Mercedes are actually onto something with their design, and once they sort the floor out, maybe it will be the best one. Who knows? But given Red Bull, given Newey, I think it's a pretty safe bet. General Dragan says, I guess it's fine. Next year, the grid is probably going to be filled with cars looking like the Red Bull or Ferrari. Exactly the point as before. There's going to be this stage where all the cars go down that same direction. Is the Red Bull direction the right one? I mean, it's looking pretty good so far. KD9512 says professional sports across the planet is a continued cycle to see the best thing and copy that thing as best you can. All is fair. It's true. It's a reality. Like, ultimately, you're not gonna not design the best car, what you think might be the best car, just because, someone else did it first. Everyone's going to be taking inspiration. This doesn't just apply to motorsports, it applies to any creative endeavor. You always take inspiration. Yes, all right, sometimes it's a bit more than other time. But if that's the direction to make the quickest car, then everyone's going to go that way eventually. Again, idealistically, maybe it's not the most moral thing to do, but it's Formula One at the end of the day. And finally from Twitter, Karan Singh 005, I don't feel disappointed or anything, especially after seeing this. That's how it goes in F1. And you can see on the screen, retweeting from Craig Scarborough last month, talking about Red Bull copying the Aston Martin bib wing. So if Red Bull have already stolen from Aston Martin, then Aston are just stealing back. I know it's, okay, it's a bit bigger, is a bit more of a significant, at least from the outside. I don't know. I guess you could copy the underfloor and it wouldn't be as noticeable as a side pod, because the side pod's a really glaring big thing there. But Karam makes a very, very good point here. And then YouTube community, Shab Sharma says, they're sort of showing that they are kind of now incapable of building a good car themselves and are being parasites on other designs. Unbelievable. I expect better from them. So Shabbed isn't happy. I don't agree, because at the end of the day, right, given the restraints that Aston Martin are under relative to a Ferrari, a Mercedes, a Red Bull, I know the cost cap's in place now, but that's a cap. Like, a lot of the smaller teams aren't even getting up to that cap. And even if Aston Martin are spending that money, they don't have their new facility yet. They don't have that infrastructure there that these other teams do have. I think to bridge that gap, this kind of morally ambiguous kind of shithousery is probably the only way or best way to achieve that. And you know what? I personally don't have a problem with it. This conversation was rife when we saw the pink Mercedes for the first time. It's all well and good copying that design, but you have to understand it to get the most out of it. And they did that. They were able to understand. They went from a high rate car to a low rate car, a complete change in philosophy from 2019 to 2020, and it worked a treat for them. If this was one of the big teams doing the same thing, I'd probably feel a bit closer to what Shab's saying here, but as it's Aston Martin, a team at the bottom, a team building up slowly, I just think it's clever. The Gaming Project 17 said everyone expected homologation towards the best design after a season or so. Aston Martin have just done it after a few races, which is fair play to them. True. I didn't expect to see a copycat. This was always going to happen. This was always going to come eventually. We'd see cars go down these same routes, okay? For Aston Martin to bring such a big upgrade so early on, all I can sit here and say is fair play to them. Especially if it works, of course. If it doesn't work, then big egg on face, because that's a lot of budget gone to waste. Mess Noir says, I don't get why people are upset about copying. If there's something fast, you copy it if you can. That's literally how it's always been. It has. It's always been like this. Like, go into the history books of Formula One, and copycat designs, they've always existed to some extent, because of course they have. Like, you're going to see the quickest cars, and, well, if you've seen another car bring something in and it's worked, why are you going to waste your time trying other stuff out when, okay, that's proven that concept works, well, we're going to do that then. Developing and fighting for every last millisecond, that's a big part of the sport. And again, I don't have a problem with it. Jabid21 says, this gives so much credence to the brilliance of Adrian Newey. He's been designing championship winning cars for 3 decades, winning with 3 different constructors. You said it there, mate. Like, the fact that he's still designing these cars that are fighting at the top. Yes, they might not have won all of the championships, but he's always delivered Red Bull cars that can win races, and McLaren before he went to Red Bull. And even Benetton, wasn't it, before then as well? So yeah, GG Newey. Absolute god, mate. Nick Clavdianos says, instead of focusing on the aero design, let's take a moment to appreciate how teams are taking paint off their cars to make them lighter. Absolute dedication to being faster. It's true. Although I feel like haven't the Williams started putting black paint on the car? I'm sure I saw an image of that earlier from Spain. I don't know, keep an eye on that. But yeah, it does go to show that, especially at this stage, I feel like we will get to the stage where these cars will be fully liveried up again once they've been able to shave weight off other areas and once they've had more time to develop and understand these cars. I think the liveries will come back. But I think right now, at the start of these new regulations, as a short-term weight-saving measure, it makes sense. Q1, Q2 can be easily split by thousands of a second, and that could be a couple 100 grams of paint, 100%. And finally, Arhan Shah. Honestly, if it's a good car, I'm happy for them, and I'm happy for Seb. Because, yeah, let's be honest, like, obviously the fact that Seb is potentially benefiting from this as well, back to a Red Bull-esque car. Not that that actually means much, but you know what? Like, there's been so much talk recently about, is Seb going to retire, blah, blah, blah. I still think he can definitely do a job in Formula One. I've said this, I think if you give him a top-tier car, I think he can still challenge. But I also think it needs to be bang on to his liking. Is this Aston Martin there yet? Probably not. But again, if they give him the platform to succeed, I think he would seize that opportunity. And the prospect of Seb fighting again at the top, I'm excited about that. He was just garbage in 2020. And that's fine to call out because it was obvious to everyone. So they're my thoughts. Let me know yours down below. We'll see tomorrow if this Aston Martin trick has paid off. Don't forget to like and subscribe. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.